All right. Hello and welcome everybody to Be Visible Online. Nice to see familiar faces, or not so much faces, but familiar names anyway, joining us today, and welcome to those we haven't yet met in person. My name is Greg, and I'm brand director at Free, in case you haven't met me. And at Free, we help insurance businesses stand out in the market. And standing out means having a strong brand and really distinctive messaging that captures precisely what it is that makes you different. But standing out also means being more visible. And one way to do that is through search. And since it's not something we offer directly, we searched for a partner that we could work with to bring top-notch search services, and that's not easy to say, I can tell you, to the insurance industry. And we found Becky. So Becky is the CEO of Reflect Digital. And it's a business that she founded in 2011. And she's built a team around her that's focused on delivering really tangible results. And at Reflect Digital, they help businesses of all sizes to be more visible through search online. So Becky's energy and passion was really clear to us when we met her. And it's the same can be said for the jury at Wirehive Awards, who last year named her Agency Leader of the Year. So welcome, Becky. It's really great to have you with us today, and great to introduce you to people that we know in the insurance industry.
Thanks, Greg.
So Becky, I know you've got a really great introduction to search for us today, and at the end, you've got a great offer for our guests. But before I hand over, I just want to set the scene a little as to why now is the perfect time to be having this conversation. So the moment we went into lockdown in March, the idea that business can only be done face-to-face completely vanished as quickly as the crowds. And I was speaking to a chief exec of a Lloyd's syndicate on Friday, and he was saying that if he was in charge of Lloyd's, he'd be saying, well, this is the end of the underwriting room. We don't need it anymore. So with nobody about physically in person and with a hardening market, businesses are seeing that they need new ways to drive business development. And you as marketers are the only ones who can help them. So if I can quote Churchill, the man, not the dog, never let a good crisis go to waste. So I'm going to be monitoring the Q&A tab. So if you want to ask questions as we're going along, as Becky's going through her slides, pop them in the Q&A, and I will stop Becky and we can have a quick interruption to talk around any particular points you want to further explain. We're going to be going for 45 minutes, so we're finishing at 12:15. And with that, over to Becky.
Thanks so much, Greg. Brilliant. So I'm here today to inspire you. And I'm going to inspire you about the possibilities for your business using Google. Now, we've looked at the insurance search landscape, and that's also not so easy to say, all in one go. And the opportunities are vast. So what do I mean when I say search? Well, we look at it as three different types of searches. So we're going to start with the active searches. So the active searches are people like you and I, your audience, and the people that you're trying to do business with, going directly to Google or to Bing and typing into that search box what it is that they're looking for. And there's real intent in what they're doing there. So when they're searching, they're being very clear, and as they go through their journey and get closer to the purchase point, they'll get more and more specific about what they're searching for. And what we're looking at here from a how we can help point of view is either in those organic results, so from search engine optimization, so SEO that we're going to talk about lots today, so the organic listings, or the paid ads that sit at the top, which are through paid search and would either be through Google Ads or Bing within the UK. So then we have our passive audiences. So this is where we have a number of channels open to us, and I've got a few examples on screen, but there's even more than what you're seeing here. And this is where we can start to pick out audiences based on demographics, based on data held by the different platforms. So it varies from platform to platform to platform. But what we can do here is we can create audience groups and we can target them with ads. And what we're trying to do, the reason they're passive is they're doing something else on the internet at this point, and we're trying to interrupt them. So this is as close to your billboard advertising, but in a much more targeted way, where we're able to know the type of user that we're putting the ads in front of. And the great news is we don't pay unless they click. So we're only paying if they visit our website through those ads. And we'll come back to this again a bit later. And then we have remarketing and retargeting. So this is across the same platforms, and there's more than what's on screen. And what we're looking at here is that we've used a cookie on your website to know that they've been to your website. And we can split them off into little buckets. So you can actually create buckets for different services and products that you offer. And then we can start to remarket to them. So as they journey across the internet, if they've not done what we hoped they did on the website, so for example, if you've got a contact form on a product page and they didn't fill that in, then we can put them in the bucket and say, well, actually, there's still an open lead for us. We still want to try and close them down. So as they travel across the internet, we can show them ads to try and direct them back to your website. And this not only helps to close that sale, but it just helps from a brand awareness point of view. Suddenly your brand appears bigger than maybe they realized it was. And the difference between remarketing and retargeting is we're going to show them exactly what they'd seen before. So if they were on a particular service, we're going to remarket them with that service. And retargeting, well, this happens to me a lot. So this is when I've bought the shoes and they're trying to sell me the handbag. So we're showing them something different to try and get them back to buy something else, or to inquire about another service that's relevant based on the first action they've taken. And we'll come back to all of this. So we've got a poll. So we're going to pop a poll up on screen. And this is just everyone that's here today. It would just be really great to understand if you are actively marketing via SEO, PPC, and that could be any type of paid search, both, or if you're doing neither. And we'll come back to results in a minute. But I just thought it'd be interesting to understand how you are all interacting within this area, to just give a bit of context to the presentation. So I'm going to carry on driving through. Sorry, just trying to move the poll. There we go. So I thought I'd just quickly give you some context to the UK search engine market, because we're going to focus UK today, and as an agency we can help internationally, but I'm going to talk about Google in the main throughout all of the conversations today. And the reason for that is Google currently holds about 92% of the UK market, as you probably would expect. So that is why we're going to focus so much. But important to note, most of the search engines work in a very similar way. So if we're pleasing Google, we're going to be pleasing Bing as well. Now, we've done a bit of a deep dive into the landscape. So we worked with our partner Authoritas that do all of our search data and our mining of big data for us. And we thought we'd have a look to just understand at the top end of the market, when we're looking at consumer and business and kind of covering as many services as possible, what does that look like? And the leading brand, really from a search perspective, is AXA. And these are the kind of stats, and I'll walk you through these. So AXA currently rank for over 10,000 keywords. So that's a huge amount of keywords. But actually, from an Authoritas data point of view, we can see that the total market opportunity for AXA, based on the services that they cover, is about 180,000 keywords. So they're actually only just scratching the surface. So huge opportunity there. And of those 10,000 keywords on a monthly basis, so that's a monthly basis, and this is just on Google, that generates 39 million searches. And if they were to take the whole market, based on the data that Authoritas can see, that would be 1.7 billion searches. So it's absolutely huge. AXA hold a 2.3% of that market visibility share, so it is a small amount of a huge market, and on the next slide I'll show you a bit more about the competition there. And then the market value, so the numbers you're seeing here, this was if AXA didn't have this organic visibility and they had to buy this visibility and this traffic to their website through paid search. That is how much it would cost. So we're talking $9 million a month. And to buy the whole market, it's huge, 314 million. So big numbers. And what that's not to do is not to put you off a paid search. We're not saying, well, actually, oh, we just want to do SEO. It's trying to find the balance between the two, but it's showing just how important that natural position and those natural rankings can be. Now, the graph we've got below, what you're seeing here, so along the bottom axis, we've got the domain strength. So this is going from low on the left to high on the right. Now, domain strength is not something you can achieve overnight. We can't start a new website today and have a strong domain. It just doesn't work like that. It comes over time with building authority. And on the left-hand side, we've got the sum of the organic traffic. So again, low at the bottom and high. So this is how much organic traffic we believe those sites are getting. So you can see actually sitting on the high authority and high traffic are probably sites that maybe you weren't expecting in a conversation around insurance. But we've got Wikipedia and we've got gov.uk and Forbes. And that leads me on nicely, I guess, to show you a bit more around the search term competition. So when we start to talk about competitors when it comes to search, we actually have to broaden our horizons. We're not just looking at our direct competitors that we can do business against and will be selling a similar product or service to us, but actually it's those websites that want to rank or have content that ranks for similar terms. So actually at the top here of this top 10 based on AXA from a kind of market central point of view, we see that they're actually the lowest, and we've got the likes of gov.uk and money saving experts sitting at the top. So really interesting to see, and this is something, this kind of data, this is our starting point with any client that we're starting to understand what their opportunity is. We start to see what this market looks like. And then this one, we won't stay on this too long because we start to get into real data and deep data here. But what the tool can also do for us within Authoritas is bring back individual ranking URLs to help us understand their strength. So when we're starting to look at competitors, we can understand not just actually how strong their whole website is, but on an individual URL point of view, where is that strength coming from? Now, we've ordered this data by the visibility value. So the cost to generate this kind of value from paid search. So we thought that was a good metric to look at. And AXA's travel insurance page sits on top. So they've got over 1,000 or 1,100 ranking keywords for that page in particular. And then a huge visibility index, but huge potential as well. So that potential index is based on if they doubled all of their rankings. So took 10 to 5 and position 2 to position 1, that would be the additional score they would get. So interesting data, and just starts to show you without any access from a client point of view, what we can understand from a market perspective. So poll results, let's just have a look who we've got today and what kind of scores. So 42% are doing both, so that's good. So 25% neither those, so nothing within this space. And then we've got 25% SEO and 8% PPC. Cool. Well, I'll carry on talking and I'll just bear that in mind a little bit where we understand that some of you are already active, and it'd be interesting to potentially pick up some conversations afterwards to see if this has sparked any thoughts for you. So what's the dream? And this is always our starting point. We want to understand what your vision is for the business and your brand and what that big picture looks like. And then we want to work out, where does search stack up against your business goals? And for us, when we're talking about business goals, it's really important that we understand those business goals from a boardroom table point of view. What's happening in the monthly board meeting that gets talked about, and how can we match search to those KPIs and those targets that the business has, and how can we speak the same language? Because what we don't want to do is baffle people with language they don't understand that's really techie or around digital. This all comes back to the point of search is to make you more visible, to drive your brand and to drive inquiries into your business and to help your business grow. So we want to match those two up so that we're all speaking the same language. And what are the building blocks for success? So as with any marketing, we start with audience. We need to be really clear who your audience are. We need to break those down into different buckets if there's multiple audiences. At Reflect Digital, we tend to also put a psychology level on. So we'll actually start to think about motivation for those audience and what motivates them to make change. But we really want to know who that audience is and where do they hang out online, which is what brings us into talking about channel. So not every channel is right for every business, and that's where in our discovery part of working with a customer, we'll start to work out what channels are going to work for you. And now we're going to deep dive into SEO and into paid media. I say deep dive, as deep as we can go within 45 minutes, but let's talk about them a bit more. So SEO, we have a sweet spot that we work to. And for us, the starting point is research. So that comes back to audience. It comes back to understanding the marketplace, where your competitors are, how are people searching, what platforms they're using to search. Then it's technical. We need to know that your website is up to the challenge, that Google can find what it's looking for when it's crawling your website. And then we have content. And this is the absolute key pillar. When you've got the other two right and have a plan for monitoring and making sure those stay right, content is where the growth comes. And content matches up from a brand perspective and from an audience perspective. And this is where we're going to see the real change. So taking it back to that research phase, first thing we do is search volume. So we need to understand that people are actually searching, especially if we're looking at SEO and keyword-driven search. We need to know that we're going to try and rank for things that people search for. So I've got a free tool for you here today. Now we use a number of different tools, and we've got tools within our Google suite that we can use, but this is a really easy free tool. So if you want to get more knowledge for your specific niche within the insurance industry, you can download this tool, and it's a Chrome browser extension is the easiest way. And then every time you search, it will tell you what the search volume is, and it will suggest other searches. And I guess it's really important to note here that search volume is it's important to you personally, and we don't need to look at this as in, oh, but AXA had 3 million searches or whatever it was per month. Actually, we don't really care about that. We care about understanding your ecosystem and what we're trying to drive search for. And actually, those more niche terms that maybe only have 50 searches or even 10 searches a month, if they are super relevant to what you do, then that's absolutely fine, because that's going to be more likely to drive business than a really generic term that might make everyone feel good that it drove loads of traffic but didn't actually drive any business or any conversations. So really important to just have that lens on and not feel, because we've talked big numbers, not feel we need to be aiming for those big numbers. And then once we understand those search terms and what the volumes look like, we map those to your funnel. So we've got an example here of the marketing funnel. So starting at awareness, so at the point that someone's aware that they need a product, but maybe don't know in detail exactly what they need. So an example here, the search query might be property funders insurance. We then move on to engagement. So as they've kind of done a bit more research and they're really starting to kind of narrow down what it is they're looking for, they're going to potentially search again and be a bit more specific. So property transaction underwriters. And then finally, when we're at the dialogue stage where we're actually looking for quotes and we're ready to do some business, we're going to be even more specific. So for example here, title to shares insurance cost. And what we tend to see is that awareness will have bigger search volume but less likely to convert those users. And then engagement, it will jump down a little bit. And then dialogue, it will be an even smaller piece of or amount of search volume, but much more likely to convert. But the reason we map this is this helps us then think about the journey through the website and the journey through the overarching campaign that's going on here. Because at that awareness stage, that's a really good indicator that we can help take them down those steps. So we need to then think what else happens around this and what happens on that landing page to help make sure that we keep that person interested in our business, our brand, and converting with us. So that's the reason for this part. And then we map this research to our website. So we want to make sure we've got an architecture for our website that matches up to the way people search, because that's going to make it easy for Google to rank your website, but it's also going to make it easy for users because they're going to search for things and they're going to land on super relevant pages, and you're going to have thought about the journey and you're going to help nudge them through that process. And what's really important when we're thinking about structure is that we are thinking of one page to one keyword topic. So if you've got a page with 10 different types of insurance on it, Google can't handle that, and neither can a user really, because if they land and the one they want is 10th, then they've probably got bored before they've reached the bottom of the page. But also from a Google perspective, it doesn't know, well, hold on, you're talking about 10 different types of insurance here. What do I rank you for? So we want to create hubs. We want one page to one keyword topic area, and we want to create a really strong hub. And the good news here is, if your site isn't already constructed in this way, you probably do already have all of this content in different places, but it's actually just rethinking the structure and pulling that all into one place so that we're not having tons of URLs fighting against each other to rank for the same thing, or having too much of a diluted message that Google doesn't know what a page is about. And a really good example here, just before I show the example, content demonstrates authority, and that's why these hubs are really powerful, because by having the right level of content, we're showing not only to the user, because that's really important for them to want to make contact with our business, but we're showing to Google that we're an authority on a topic, we understand what we're talking about, and we've got a deep level of content to demonstrate that. And the example I mentioned was this one here, which is AXA's travel insurance page. So we picked this one just because it was the top page out of the research we did. And you can see the content as we go down. They've got a secondary nav, which shows that actually that deep dives off into further detail. But we've got a really good level of content. We're breaking it up into different types of content. There's tables. There's a bit of kind of infographic content here. And it's important to note, Google can understand how content's laid out when it's looking at your page, so that's important. We've got social proof, really good to understand whether actually AXA offer a good service here. And then we've got links off to other parts of the website, which again is powerful for Google. If Google can see that your website links across the ecosystem of your website to other pages, then that shows that you've got a really joined up message, and again adds strength to your offering. So then we're going to check out the competition. So we understand our keywords, we understand how that affects our website and how we might want to lay our website out. So now's a really good time to go and check out who our competitors are and what it is that they're doing, and to benchmark ourselves. And this is the point where we want to draw a line in the sand, and we want to keep a note of this. We want to report to understand where were we and where were our competitors, and where do we want to get to. And you can see here, so we've done a quick little dive, again using Authoritas, into the London market. And we've got two of the brands we've looked at. You can see who they are, and two we've blanked out for now. But as you can see, so on the top left-hand side, we can see the number of keywords that these websites rank for. So QBE Europe ranks for the most out of these 4 sites, and Liberty Speciality Markets is second. But then if you flip your view to the right-hand side, we've got the visibility index. So this is a score based on how visible that website is. So the reason this is now different is that Liberty either have better rankings, or they're ranking for terms with more search volume. And QBE, although they had more keywords, potentially they're either in lower positions or lower search volume. So we can, at a deeper dive, start to drill into that. So if this was your website and we were looking at this for you, we'd be able to really try and understand the makeup of that and what's important. And then the final bit that's important on this screen is just the result type prominence. So you can see here, the people also ask is the column that we've highlighted. So Google has lots of different ways that it shows results now. We've got those natural results that go down the page and that have always been there with the blue links and the text, but Google now has much richer results, and they're called featured snippets, and we can see there's lots of different types of those results that are shown for these 4 websites in particular. So by starting to understand that and delve into that, that becomes part of our strategy to work out what do we actually want our results to show, and how can we take those positions. And then finally, we've just got this, shows us organic visibility, again for the 4 websites, but you can see across a 12-month period how that changes. And again, this is important as we're running a strategy, that we can keep an eye on this and see what the fluctuations are and what work from our point of view we know we've been doing that's affected that. So let's get technical, and we won't get too technical, I promise. So I said that technical was important. So the next thing we do is we audit. We need to audit a website to understand technically how it stacks up. Now, what does Google most care about? Well, first of all, it cares about crawling. So Google has spiders and robots that come to your website and they crawl through the structure of your site using the sitemap, using the navigation, but also using links within pages. And what we need to ensure can happen is that Google can crawl your whole website that you want them to crawl. If they hit dead ends, 404s, or there's a section that they just can't navigate to, then you can't rank for that because Google doesn't know it's there. So really important that technically it's set up right. We then have speed. Now, as users, we care about speed. We get fed up if websites are slow, and so does Google, because Google really does put users at the heart of its algorithm and its decisions that it makes. Which brings us on nicely to user experience. So Google can understand the user experience of a website. It can understand what that experience looks like. And most importantly, Google has a mobile first index, which means Google goes to mobile before it goes to desktop. So even if you think your audience, and maybe your stats also tell you that your audience is very much desktop based, we still need to make sure we've got a really good mobile experience, because that is the way Google's going to be viewing your site first. So we need to know that works. And then just a final point for technical on international setup. We need to make sure that we've got a good, if you're trying to reach different territories, that you've got the right international setup. So some sites won't have it at all, and you'll be hoping to reach different markets, and actually that will really hold you back, and you'll need to get an international setup put in place. And in other cases, sometimes we see that there is an international setup, but it's not quite right from an SEO point of view. And sometimes people are nailing it, so you might be one of those as well, but it's just a really important note to think about. And then what about content? I said content was important. So this is the featured snippets that I mentioned. So on the left-hand side, I've got a list of the different types of featured snippets that are possible. And some of these might not be relevant to you, but that's the list. And then on the right-hand side, I've got some examples for you of types of featured snippets. So top right-hand side, we've got how to buy insurance was the search term, and you get a stepped process. And
Sorry, question in. So this is about, websites. So the question is, our websites used to validate us as a sort of a brochure site. And, how do we know if it's worth putting in the effort and the time and the budget to produce content? How do we know that people will be searching for it? Or how do we know that it'll be worth the investment?
So that comes down to this discovery stage. So we would be able to work out, relevant to the niche area that a particular website is in, what the search volumes look like, and be able to decide, is SEO right for that audience, or actually, if people aren't searching for it, what are they searching for? Because people turn to Google a lot of the time now, especially now we're not in offices and can't talk to our colleagues sitting next to us and ask for recommendations. So it's, what are people searching for that potentially drives them through? And if we can't identify anything, which I don't think has ever happened, but if we can't, we then also can look to paid search to say, well, actually, if you're creating content and you've got an audience for that content, that they don't know to search for it, then we can start to create audiences that we can target. And I'll come on to that in a minute about how that works. But does that help?
Yeah, thank you. Great.
Perfect. Cool. So Google looks at on-page signals, so it wants to understand what you're saying on a page, and from a content point of view, how that fits in with what they're looking for. So I've got a picture here which shows you the different types of on-page that Google is looking at. So top left is the title of the page that sits at the top of the browser. So the user never really reads this. This is very much there in our eyes for Google. We then have the URL. We want really friendly URLs. We don't want ID equals 2345. That's not helpful. Google doesn't understand that. We then have the navigation. As I said, this is part of how they crawl the website. So we want to make sure we've got a good navigation. And then we want to make sure we're using keywords naturally in our content. We don't want to overuse them, but we also don't want to not put them in there at all. We want to get that balance. We've then got the use of anchor text. So an anchor is where we've got a link to another page potentially, or further down the page. That helps Google to see relevancy across your website. And then we have the headings. So the H1, there should only ever be one on a page, and that is the title of the page that the user sees, but is really important to Google. And then you can use the subheadings 2 and 3 as you go down to also show relevancy. And then finally, we've got the meta description. Now the user doesn't see this on the page. This is added within your content management system, but the meta description is there for Google to show on the results page. And most of the time they will show the one that you've given them. And that doesn't help you rank, but what it does help is drive click-throughs from the results page. And then we have off-page signals. So what do I mean by this? This is our chance to get creative. And this is all about link building. So in Google's eyes, one of the ways that it understands the authority of your website, and one of the ways that you gain authority over time, is by achieving links from other websites. So a link from another website acts like a vote of confidence. So every link that comes in helps Google to understand that that website was willing to link to you, and the content was talking about said topic, which helps build authority on a topic. And obviously, if a website was created yesterday and it links to you, that's not going to hold much weight versus if it was the BBC sending you a link. That's like gold dust, and we want as many of those as we can. And this is the type of content that gets links. So I won't walk you through all of it, but it's trying to use digital PR as one of the main areas, but having a hook that's going to help us get a link. Because actually, if it's just a news story, it's quite hard to get a link. But actually, if we've created something, so a visual asset around some research we've done, or we've got a full report for someone to download, often the newspapers will have to give a link because they know that their article isn't really valuable to their audience unless they can read the full detail on it. So these are just some of the ideas that we use to get links. And this becomes part of a long-term strategy to build content that's right for your brand, right for your audience, right for campaigns that you're running that you can use in other ways, but also has SEO at the heart of it by generating links. So what about paid media? Now, we've talked a lot about SEO, and we're going to do a small snippet on paid media. And if you've got more questions, you can definitely ask me after this if you want to know more. This is our sweet spot. So it starts with research and planning, understanding the audience again. We then look at processes, technology. This also brings in platforms as well. So understanding where we can use AI to help with this. And then it's the people in the industry experience. So using your knowledge as the business, and using our knowledge of understanding PPC and our experience within different sectors to pull that all together, and sharing between SEO and PPC knowledge, because we want to make sure that we're not doubling up on things and that we're actually supporting each other.
Becky?
Yes.
Sorry, just back to that. I know a lot of our clients and a lot of people in the industry run PPC in-house. What is it that, is there something that you can point to, that the additional expertise that comes from going through someone like you?
Yeah, no, definitely. So the thing with PPC, Google and the other platforms, they all make out that it's really easy, and it feels easy. You can follow the steps through and you can create your ad and you're up and you're running. But actually a big part of what the deciding factor in how much you pay for a bid and how much you pay to be there and when you get shown comes through the expertise of really understanding the deep detail on what Google's looking for and how to structure your account, and how to, it's not even necessarily the end part the customer sees, which that is still important, but it's some of the structuring internally. So, I mean, I've been working in this area now for 15 plus years, and I wouldn't run my own ads. My team would, because that's what they do and that's what they're expert at. But I personally just wouldn't, because I know that it would cost me more money, and I'd end up missing some of the audience, because that deep understanding of how to set them up is, and how to run them and optimize them is what you're paying for, really, by using a specialist at that. So hopefully that answers that. Platform-wise, there's tons of platforms. So there's different reasons to use different platforms, and there's different targeting available. And that's, again, where our expertise comes in to help you understand that. We then think back to the landscape. So depending on what you're trying to achieve, we'll think about, is that going to be an active user that's searching? Is it going to be someone passive that we're trying to put a campaign in front of them and to grab their attention? Or are we looking at remarketing and trying to drive the message home, either from a brand point of view or to try and get them to convert? We've got different formats. So I've got 3 of the kind of most popular formats on screen. So we've got text ad, top left. So we've all seen those before. We've got video ads, which could be on YouTube. That's the screenshot is from YouTube, but that could have been also video ads on social platforms. And then we've got banner ads, which are either static or animated to grab attention. So again, we can use our understanding to help work out what's going to be best for you. At the moment, video ads are working really well, and if not video, animated. I mean, the standard text does work and is really powerful, but if we're in a channel that's like a social channel and we're trying to grab people's attention, that animation or video is really, really powerful.
I really see a lot of potential for remarketing, especially on the video and the pre-rolls. Not only because they've visited your site, they've got the cookie, they're watching something, and something relevant, specific to your brand turns up in the YouTube environment when they're watching something else. It really does make your brand feel a lot bigger, but also, I think, you were saying in our conversation the other day that there's little tricks, around PPC that you can get the exposure without having necessarily the expense of paying all the time, because you're using it as an awareness tool. And also, so you're not necessarily expecting the click-throughs or all of that, but you're just projecting a bigger image.
Exactly. I mean, if someone offered you a free billboard somewhere, you would never say no. And actually, that's what display ads are until someone clicks. And actually, we don't mind paying if they click because they're interested, because they're going to hopefully do something. So it's, it's so powerful. And it is that opportunity to keep your brand in people's minds while they're making decisions and thinking, or just to build your brand profile for that particular audience. And that brings us on nicely to kind of the audiences and sectors. So on screen, I've got some examples of the types of data we can use to profile on, but this varies from platform to platform and depending on how much data they store. But this is brilliant because we can create those audiences and understand that we are putting ads in front of people that we know are likely to be interested in what we're trying to show them. And we can do that for things like video. If you've got an ability to make video within your business and to do thought leadership in that way, we can use things like YouTube to push those videos out and to get them into the eyes of people that you know that you want to target, and to build your brand that way. And what's also really great with all of this, when it comes to paid search, on most of the platforms, we can also create lookalike audiences. So where we collect buckets of your audience that we know are engaged, we can then say to Google, well, can you now create me another audience that's similar to this? And it will use everything it knows about an audience and what they do online and all the tracking it has to create more of the same, to try and obviously it's not 100% guaranteed, but it's such a great way of expanding your audience and then seeing if they engage, and then they'll end up in your engaged audience, and then they will help another new lookalike audience in the future. So that's a really clever trick as well. And then remarketing and retargeting, we've probably touched on this enough, but yeah, to me, this is a no-brainer that every brand should be running, really. And maybe not across your whole website, you'd pick the right areas, but it's one of those things that actually doesn't need to cost a lot, and it is just there ticking over to help keep your brand in the eyes of your potential customers. And then as we're coming to a close, tracking must underpin everything. So before we start any of what I've just talked about, we need to know that we have the right tracking in place to be able to measure, because that is the beauty with SEO and with paid search, that we can track it all, and we don't want any surprises or any data that we've missed out on. So having the right tracking set up is key. And we must agree what good looks like before we start with search. So we need to know, what are we aiming for? And that's a big part of why we do the discovery phase, and we will look at competitors, etc., because we try and benchmark and agree, what are we aiming to achieve? What's the timeline on that? Because actually for everything it's different. So SEO takes time, but there'll be quick wins in there that will happen quickly, and some that might be a longer term plan. Paid search, yes, you can turn it on overnight, but that doesn't mean it's going to be the most amazing campaign overnight. It takes time to optimize and make it better. So we must agree what we're aiming for and over what period, and be really open and be sure that we've got the right tracking in place to match up with that and to match up with the business goals. This all needs to come back to what is it you're trying to achieve from a business. So hopefully that was useful, Greg.
Yes, oh, very useful and fascinating, and a brilliant intro. Thank you so much. And, you know, just to say, obviously, the more visible you are, the more valuable your brand becomes. If you dialed into our webinar a couple of weeks ago, where we looked at share of market, you know, turning into share of voice and share of market, the correlation between the two, you'll remember that. But I also want to just talk a little. I mentioned at the beginning that Becky had a great offer for you all. And you know, this is it. It's a fantastic offer. And Becky, do you want to just talk through what this is?
Yeah, so basically looking at some of the data that we showed you today, it's that kind of data that we can get you for your business. So what we do is we set up a call initially to take a bit of a brief to just understand a bit more about your business in particular. And then we would go away and we'd look at some competitors that you've maybe suggested, but we'd also then tell you some new competitors that maybe you're not aware of from a search perspective. And we'd be able to understand what your market opportunity looks like. And this is brilliant because this starts to feed the opportunity and thinking about, is this something that's right for me? On the flip side, on paid search, we could also have a look at it from that angle. And if you're running ads, if you wanted us to do a little audit of ads, because I know a few of you were running ads, then we're happy to do a little free audit as well to give you a bit of insight into what difference we could make, especially if you're running those in-house and you want to know, well, actually, are we doing this right, or could we do with an agency on board to help support us? So
yeah, great. So yeah, you run your inquiries, please, via Dara, and she'll coordinate. And I just think that something like this would really help equip marketers to make the business case for investment. You know, going back to the idea of a Leadenhall market that's empty and the hardening market and no more face-to-face, or for the interim anyway. You know, how can you take a proposal to your bosses and the board to say, you know, we need to invest in this, and this is the opportunity we see for it. So, you know, it's a whole complete project that I think hopefully marketers can get on, you know, get their C-suite on board with, because there are tangible results at stake, and a lot more at stake for the business. So thank you, everybody. We're about to wrap up. I don't think there are any more questions coming in. So I will probably call this to a close. In fact, I will call it to a close and give you a few minutes back in your day. So thanks very much for joining, everybody. And thank you, Becky, for a brilliant introduction.
Thank you all.